Thompson to Clark. Brad and Double G here on a Monday, back in our normal time slot here.
There you go.
And originally, we were trying to think of some ideas like, what do we want to talk about today? Do we want to do something fun? There's not a ton of news. And then, as it turned out, there is a decent amount of news once we kind of put the rundown together. So the thing we were thinking about was our top 5 Giants teams of all time. So I think we're going to push that to the next week that, maybe there's not a ton of things to talk about. So that will be coming. But for today, we do have a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about the Athletic article that came out on Buster Posey last week. And then you listened to the podcast today that came out over the weekend, right? The Rates and Barrels podcast.
Yeah, it's on. They also run it on YouTube, so I checked that out too. Just the portion of the Giants, and it kind of sounded like when I was listening to it, kind of sounded like they were just going to do like a quick kind of segment on the Giants. They talked about the Giants for about 40 minutes on that podcast. It's like an hour and 10-minute podcast, and 40 minutes of it was about the Giants.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that, and then it looks like we're going to get Marcelo Meyer this week.
Yeah.
And he and Rafael Devers are going back to Boston. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I actually reached out to some folks. One of our buddies who were in a college football video game dynasty with, Ryan Fantasia. He's a longtime Red Sox fan. So I just pinged his brain about thoughts about Meyer. And then the guys at the Pesky podcast, I did a thing on their show right before the trade deadline, and I may go back this week to kind of preview that series. I'm going to try and make that work. But I asked their guys, and they're 2 Boston Red Sox podcasters, so they sent me some feedback. So we'll talk about Meyer, kind of what to expect. I've just been on this thing where I think, with kind of how boring this team is, you get somebody who's got a little bit of charisma. If he just produces a little bit, I think he can be a pretty big star in this area. So we'll talk about that. And then the Tugboat came up today.
That's cool. I'm excited
so
about that.
We'll talk about the Tugboat. We'll talk a little bit about Tidwell. We'll talk about Carson Whisenhunt, who we've been sort of talking about for, I feel like, the last 3 years, and whether or not we expect those guys to do much in the future in this rotation. I think we have a pretty good idea about 2 of them, but we haven't really seen the Tugboat, so we'll just kind of to discuss what we know about the Tugboat. So heavy slate. Let's talk about this Buster Posey piece that came out in the Athletic. So I don't even do you know how to pronounce the author's name? Brittany, is it Ghiroli?
They say it at the beginning of that podcast because she's on it, and they just call her Brit. So maybe we just go with that.
So Brit, but I've been reading her stuff on The Athletic for a little while.
Yeah.
She's a really good writer. She's more of a national writer, though, and she did the thing on Buster. And the title of her article was Buster Posey's Giants legacy is on the line as adulation is shifting to anger. And this is something that we've been talking about pretty much ever since he decided to become head of baseball operations, which is, dude, you're beloved here. Like, why would you risk that by taking this position that seems a little bit over your head, and maybe not even a little bit? And, I read through the piece. I thought the piece was very well done. It is from a more national perspective than local perspective. So there are things that you and I feel like we've been on her topic for months now. And, but she, she's reporting and she's kind of putting it all together a little bit as a feature. So behind the piece, what is really kind of like what other people think of what Buster's doing. And in this piece, Buster specifically is like, why would I care about somebody's opinion who I wouldn't even go ask for advice? That's like kind of his angle with the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. It's a little defensive because I think like Buster's not going to come to us for advice. Like if we were palling around with Buster, but even though you and I know way more about Giants history and Giants lore than I'm sure than he does, just because we're older.
That's true.
But the idea of like, oh yeah, I have really smart people who can give me feedback. Like, why do I care what the media says? And I get that, especially when you're on a down season. It could be frustrating. But the thing about that, I think we as fans, and essentially his entire fan base, Giants fan base that is frustrated with him, it is an interesting way of saying, I do not care what the fans think. Maybe he's specifically talking about media. And I couldn't tell based on the piece. He may have only been talking about talking heads, podcasters. He may have been mostly talking about KMBR. Who knows? But it did seem like, I was like, okay, I get it. But Giants fans are really smart about a lot of this stuff, and so you're kind of discrediting them in their criticalness of how the season has been going. Overall, what were some of your takeaways in reading that piece?
I almost had like kind of a positive outlook reading it. I don't know if that was me just wanting to have a positive outlook, but as I was reading it, I thought, all right, it sounds like he's got a vision. It sounds like he kind of has an idea of where everything's going, but he's not wanting to show his cards almost. I kind of felt like some things were held close to the vest. Um, but then watching the Rates and Barrels podcast and the interview with Britt, and everything that Eno Saris and Derek Van Riper had to say, I didn't feel too good after that. I kind of felt like, oh yeah, this front office does need a lot of help. And you and I have been saying that. We've been talking about that for a little while, that he does need a true like number 2 man. And I don't think Zach Manassian is that guy.
Yeah.
I think somebody with way more experience, in that position who maybe has, some experience with baseball operations, not just general manager and signing players and releasing players and moving players around and whatnot, but something with the overall baseball operations, a little more analytics. We said, we were too analytic with Gabe Kapler.
Mm-hmm.
Then with Bob Melvin, we were starting to go the other way. And then with Buster Posey and Tony Vitello, it's almost like we've gone back to the feel part of baseball, which is not working right now. Also, you've got a guy in Tony Vitello that he hired that is not, a feel guy yet, because he's only managed 120 games, in the majors. So I don't know what I kind of got from it is, yes, there may be an idea and a plan and a direction that this team is heading, but he sure as hell wasn't going to talk about it. He wasn't going to say in that article what that plan is, whether it's we're going to have to start ditching some of these big contracts and bringing up some of the young guys. It's going to be a rough couple of years. Tony Vitello is our guy to lead the young crop of players that are coming up. None of that. It was just kind of, hey, we're disappointed in the way things are going. Vitello's the right guy. We're moving forward. And a lot of it was kind of Britt's commentary on it, which I get. She was the one doing the interview and speaking with him, so she knows best, I think, when it comes to the attitude and the feel of what the answers were. So yeah, I don't know. I went into it thinking, this is a hit piece. This is going to be nasty. This is going to be ugly. When in turn it wasn't.
No, I thought it was pretty thoughtful and not. I thought specifically so. Not a hit piece. Who's our guy that we brought on when the last lockout? His Twitter name is Baseball Jeff. I forget his last name.
Oh yeah, I talked to him a lot on Blue Sky. I don't know why the last name is not there right now, but I'll find it here in a second.
I think on X he's Baseball Jeff 1. Really smart follow. I love watching. I love just reading his tweets in a place where I will say Giants Twitter is actually pretty good. There's not a lot of super negative, like really bad accounts on Giants Twitter, so I really do enjoy it. But basically, Baseball Jeff, I remember when the piece came out, he sensed that there was a little bit of Andrew Baggerly help in Brittany's piece. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like Bags, sometimes people think Bags takes cheap shots or writes in a very condescending way sometime, and I enjoy it because he knows how to use his words sometimes like a sword. And so Jeff was like, yeah, I wonder if it was Baggerly. But if Baggerly wrote that thing, or maybe he did have some help in the reporting, but you could just read the piece that Baggerly wrote on Vitello the other day when he had to call the team meeting after Sunday's horrendous game. Baggerly is not afraid to mince words, and I don't think Brittany went out of her way to really, say anything negative or super duper critical. She just kind of reported what people were saying. So what the people are saying, and if you have listened to me talk to Jarrett Seidler from Baseball Prospectus, so the shows that, when Brad goes on vacation, I bring in Jarrett every once and again. And pretty much the day that Buster took over the reins, he was like, yeah, like I understand sometimes when you go so hard into analytics, sometimes you pull back. He's like, but I've never seen it to where they go like the opposite way, where they just do a 180 and they just go, screw analytics. We're going back to the old school scouting method and that. And I think they probably pulled back a little bit. But like you said, it was an overcorrection from the Farhan era, where Farhan made it really hard to kind of root for your team because it was almost like every player was a chess piece rather than an actual personality of a human being. And so they really zagged the other way. And now you have what we have today. And honestly, if they were better, then maybe you'd be a little bit more for the zagging. But because these last 2 years, it has been a proof of concept not working. I'm with you, man. I don't know if it's even a Menasian thing, but you can't fire Buster. No. Buster's he's a minority owner in the team. So I would hope that they could bring in somebody who's a little bit more of the analytical mind. But if you're so still deep in the scouting, and if you got Sabian on the bat phone, and this is really what your mentality is, if someone with more of an analytical mind came in, he'd probably get overruled, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, Britt did say during the Rates and Barrels podcast that it basically is Buster does have the final say. Even though he's not, surrounding himself with yes men, he is taking ideas and he is, taking into account everything, but ultimately he has the final say. And I was saying last week, I would love for him to relinquish some of that and not necessarily have the final say on everything. Sure, I mean, he's got to sign off on it. He's the head of baseball operations. I get that. But if you've got a majority of 3 or 4 people that want to do one thing and think something's a great idea, and he just has a gut feeling that it's not, I would like to see him more go with the majority of what baseball operations say. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, then you tell those people, hey, look, that didn't work out. Let's come back to the drawing board with better ideas and let's see what else we can figure out. Not everything's going to work. That's the thing. Right now, nothing's working. That's the problem. But as we've seen before, even in Sabian's years, even when Farhan was clicking, there's always something that's not going to quite pan out. It's just going to happen. But right now, it just kind of seems like every call up, every free agent, waiver signing, everything is just not working right now. And then when you've got a guy like Willie Adames who's out there, he's been scuffling all year, but he's still your power guy, one of your power guys. But then his back goes out, and now you've got Buddy Kennedy playing third base while Koss is playing shortstop, and it's just, there are better ways to do it, and a lot of the complaints from this article and from the podcast and the interview is that they're just not using the fringe, number 37 38, 39, and 40 of the 40-man roster the way Farhan did in finding some diamonds in the rough, finding some guys who might stick and come up and help you. I mean, hell, we were even doing that in 2010 with Cody Ross. I mean, you know, and then Pat Burrell in 2012. So, you know, these things, they can pan out. You just got to, you know, if you think Drew Gilbert is your answer against lefties, which he's not. I mean, he's one of the worst hitters in baseball against lefties. Platoon him with find somebody on the waiver wire who's like, hey, this guy crushes lefties. Let's go platoon the rest of the season. Yeah, this guy might not be there next year, but hey, you know what? We're showing how to win ball games. We're showing that we're trying to put guys on the field. If you can do something, we're going to find a place for you. I think that's kind of important. So that's your fringe back end of the 40-man roster who can crack in right now to the 25, 26-man spot on the active roster. It's just that's where this is at right now, because we do have a lot of 40-man roster guys who are in AA and single A. Our AAA roster is not great. And so, you know, it's time you can make that back end of the 40-man churn. You can kind of make it look a little sexy. Right now, it's just, I mean, there were times where there was nobody on the 40, nobody in the 40 spot. We had a 39-man roster for like a month, and that's a problem. There's guys out there. There are people you can put on the 40-man, especially
with the bullpen the way that it is.
I mean, you can grab me. I could go out there and maybe try, you know, I could pitch better than this bullpen right now. I you know, it's that type of thing. There's got to be somebody out there that you can entertain, you know, in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning and see what they can do. Because right now it's, I mean, you know, 10 walks in one game on Sunday was just disgusting.
Okay. I guess the other thing in the piece, I thought it was interesting that she compared this run to the Jeter run with the Marlins. I'd kind of forgotten about it because it was so quick. And I think it makes a lot of sense. The main difference, obviously, is that he didn't do it with the Yankees. He did it with the Marlins. So he kind of did it in a way where the national media was going to be more interested than the New York media. And Buster did it with the Giants, which is the team that he won all the titles with. So that put more of a magnifying glass on him. But it's from what it sounds like, it is also the only team that he would have done this for, is because he is so invested in this team. Yeah. And in the article, it said how it came to his brain was that he had just thought driving over the bridge what it would be like for the team to be playing in October again. And it's like, great memory, great thought. Look, I think about that all the time too. Maybe I should throw my name in the hat.
That's all it takes?
That's it? No, I would not want that job. I might want the salary, but I don't think I'd want the pressure.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
But
I think here's the thing though. And I don't think it's an ego thing with Buster, because we know Buster, right? I mean, we've seen him for years and years and years. I think what it comes down to is he willing to, going forward, surround himself with people that can take stuff off of his plate, not because he's bad at it, but just because he doesn't have the experience. I mean, Randy Wynn, love the guy, but head of your scouting department and head of your minor league system, I don't know. He's still learning on the job. Tony Vitello, okay, college manager, still learning on that. All these guys are still learning on the job, and that's what they've talked about in this. And so is he willing to just say, let me get some experience around me? I don't have the experience of head of baseball operations, but all these other people do, and let me soak that in and grow from that. And let's build a monster. Let's build a team that's going to be around for a long time.
All right, let's call it right now. I'm in the piece. Buster Posey says that he believes Tony Vitello is going to be back. They are planning that Tony Vitello is going to be back. What do you think? Is Tony Vitello going to be managing this team in 2027?
Yes, we saw Susan Slusser put out there today that she thought she wouldn't be surprised if a college team came knocking for him in the offseason. from what we've seen from Vitello so far, I don't feel like he's the type of guy who's going to finish 25, 30 games under 500 and then walk away. I think he's signed here as a challenge to see what he can do. Buster still believes in him. So short answer long. He's going to be, I think he's going to be the manager in 2027.
I agree with you. And I also think for Tony's future, because Tony's a young dude, he's younger than us.
Yeah.
If he wants to have a future as a big league manager, you don't run away from the guy who gave you the opportunity.
Right.
They paid Tennessee to get him out of his deal. He's here now. He makes good money. If you're going now, maybe when it comes, maybe you fulfill your duties and you go, okay, this is not for me. I just don't think he's going to look at Buster Posey and go, thank you for all you did for me. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Not in the Dwayne Kuiper way of saying out of here.
Exactly.
And
and
I just don't think you do that because you ruin your reputation. He already kind of has a little bit of a sullied reputation in the big leagues, just coming from college the way that he did and the way his managing style and his personality. I think if he wants to grow into a major league manager, you get through this first job and you learn from it, and maybe you are successful, and maybe it does set up another job where maybe you're a little bit better. But I don't think you go back to college unless you go, you know what, this wasn't for me. And I don't think he can make that decision after 1 year. No. Maybe he does after 3 years, and then he goes, okay, I'm back. I'm going back to college. But right now, I think he's got to stick with it just because of who believes in him, which is Buster Posey.
And he's got so much drive. He's a dude, right? He's not going to sit there and go, I failed 1 year and I got this great deal to go back. And like you said, he's young. Now, if he was 58 years old, 60 years old, I could see maybe he's like, you know what? I don't have many years left managing. I don't want to do this anymore. This was a mistake. I'm going to head back. But the fact that he's under 50 years old, no, he's too much of a dude that he's like, hey man, I took this challenge. I'm here. Let's get some wins and let's get back to 500 and maybe above. This team is going to be hard pressed to do that next year just because of the starting rotation, the bullpen, everything else. But if he's going to have some young guys coming up, and he's going to be with Tidwell for a whole year and guys like Tugboat for a whole year. I mean, that's a challenge for him. And I think that's in his wheelhouse. And that's why I don't think he's going anywhere.
All right, let's switch gears because somebody who we're very excited to watch play baseball, Marcelo Meyer, is possibly going to play in the Cleveland series. Hopefully, I would like to see him get at least one game underneath him with the Giants before going back to Boston, which will be an interesting reception. Rafael Devers as well. I think Devers' reception will be possibly a little bit more angry, frustrated.
I think that one's going to be ugly. Yeah. I don't think that one's going to be a pretty one. I think Meyer going back, I think it'll be kind of lukewarm. I don't think they're going to care too much because he didn't play in many games.
No.
And, he was banged up and didn't really get a chance. I think if anything, you got to be mad at, if you're a Sox fan, you got to be mad at ownership for doing that, for your baseball operations for doing that, not the player. But I think Devers drove himself out of Boston in a way, and that's where the fans are like, yeah, okay, let's let him have it.
I think Meyer, even if he's above average with the Giants, I think it's going to be a very positive thing. And I was asking some of the guys about their thoughts. So I want to read these reviews of Marcelo. So I have two from the Pesky Podcast guys. I don't know who wrote what, so I'll just read both of them. So one of them says, I think Marcelo Meyer's a talented ball player. I just feel Boston wasn't a fit for him. I feel he's great on the defensive side of the ball, but the offensive numbers lacked with plate discipline as a prospect. He was good and was supposed to be the shortstop of the future, but it never panned out. Now that he's gone, I still hope he has a good playing career. I feel like he'll perform better close to home in a smaller market than the pressure of playing in Boston. San Francisco's not that much of a smaller market than Boston, though. The other one said he always had the hype and the pedigree. A guy that could give you sufficient defense, can play multiple spots. Ron Washington should be able to guide him tremendously. Same with Vitello, as he has a way with the younger players. He does have a really pretty swing, but he was never able to put it together from a hitting standpoint. Probably needed more time in Worcester. Came up out of necessity, but he struggled against breaking ball and off-speed pitches. Curious how that ballpark factors into his bat. He's been below average bat at the major league level, so there's definitely tweaking to do there. Now, the thing that I didn't even think about was if you're Ron Washington, you're like, oh, I got a guy who's kind of in that Casey Schmidt mold who can play multiple positions. And I know based on what I've heard, shortstop is probably the worst of the three, of second, third, and short for him. So maybe he won't have to play there much. But second base, it sounds like he could be a really, really good second baseman from what I've heard. And we both saw that laser beam home run that he hit the other day.
Yeah, I mean, that was nuts.
So, yeah, it looks like, not to get overly hyped, obviously, the guy has talent. He just got to put it together. So our buddy Ryan Fantasia said, I thought it was telling that they traded him for a reliever. He was close with Roman. He means Roman Anthony. And they both went down early with injuries. And I think there was a thinking they needed to be broken up. They just need to trot him out there and see what he becomes. He's got a lot of years of club control left, but he's got to make it or not now. I don't know if he needs to do that necessarily now, but he is a little bit older. He's not 22, right? What is he? Is he 24?
I believe so, yeah.
So, yeah, but they do Casey Schmidt, 26, and he's finally having his breakout season. JJ was telling me, he goes, we were talking about the Giants yesterday, and he was down on everyone other than Casey Schmidt, but he was like, I never wavered in my faith. I was always a believer in Casey Schmidt. And he was telling me, he's like, and you gave up on him. I was like, I never believed in him. So there's a difference. I never thought he was going to be, this crazy contributor, especially with the bat at the big league level. And so we were having this conversation, and I was saying the way that you're talking about him, he would have to replicate this season to back up what you're saying about him. And I think the odds would be against that. Like, if Casey Schmidt is between what he was last year and what he was this year, his numbers aren't going to be the same. Now, if he is that guy, that same guy next year, then it's adios muchachos, Matt Chapman. But then
it's gotta be. Yeah.
But then we saw that stat with Matt Chapman and how many his value in saving runs, and it feels like he hasn't played in months, and he's still like really high on that list. So that's why, if Casey could be 60 to 75% of that and then be a much better hitter, I think you're good. I think you're like, okay, but I don't know if we can expect Casey to come back next year and do the stuff that he's been doing this year. That would be great though if he did.
Yeah, and don't forget too, and everybody forgets about this, but Chapman was getting on base. He had the highest walk rate on the team when he got hurt. Eldridge and Kavanaugh have surpassed him, but he's still third on the team in walk rate. So he was getting on base. If he wasn't getting hits and hitting home runs, he was getting on base and he was saving runs with his defense too. Something interesting that Sarah said today was he said he would like to see Willie go on the IL, get the back figured out, get back to being healthy because he's still got next year. This team is 22 games under 500. He wants to see Meyer at shortstop, and then when Willie comes back, Willie would play second base. So I thought that was interesting. I thought you might get a kick out of that one because I know how big you are on Giant second baseman, and what's your thoughts on Willie playing second base?
I think shortstop is obviously a big responsibility, especially if your body is breaking down a little bit because you have to cover a lot. But you got to run a lot at second base, man.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
going out there to be the cutoff man in certain scenarios, and you're backing up positions, and so you got to have the legs. And if he's got the back issue, he's not going to have the legs. He's probably better fit to be a third baseman, I think, with his build rather than a second baseman. But then that would be the problem, right?
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this. They overloaded at DH and they overloaded at guys who can play third. They don't really have a shortstop right now that is, kind of like fit to play a backup for Adames. Like maybe I guess Christian Koss can, but it's not like you roll Christian Koss out there and you go, you know what, that guy is a big league shortstop. He's like, no, he's like a utility player. So I guess those guys are coming, but they're just not here right now.
Yeah, and that was the other comments that they made too. Is he was basically saying, "I want your thoughts on this too." He was also saying, in a couple of years, when those young guys are coming up, like Keelan and Joswar, and those guys start coming up, time to move on from Willie Adames and Devers and Chapman and move those guys to other teams and offer to eat 90% of the contract, just so you can get them out of there.
They got the money. They don't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But when you look at it that way, then you do move on from those. You are paying the money, right? You are paying the money 90% of the contract, but you're also not paying Joswar. You're not paying Keelan. You're not paying those guys because they're all ARB guys still, or pre-ARB even by the time they come up. So it kind of makes sense, but
I think the only contract that's going to be an anchor is the Devers contract, because by the time, and who knows who gets here first? Maybe it is Keelan who gets here first, but by the time Hernandez and Level and Joswar are going to be possibly looking to break onto the big club, is minimum like 2.5 years. So by that time, what will Adames will only have like 2 years left, and Chapman will only have like 1 or 2 years left. So by then, their contracts aren't going to be as big of a deal as they are now, except for Devers. Devers will be the one that if you really wanted to get out from under it, you will have to pay a heavy ransom to do so. I just don't I don't understand. You're kind of cutting. What is there's some proverb about cutting your nose off to spite your face, or whatever that saying is, because if you have these guys ready to come up and you want them to develop on the big league club, you don't put them in a deal to get off of another contract. You just Albert Pujols that guy and just let him be your DH and your bench guy until his contract is over. And like, that's how you have to do it. There's no salary cap in baseball. Like you'll pay, maybe you pay some tax, but the math, which you just said is if all those guys come up, they're going to be the cheapest infield in all of baseball at that point. So you can offload, you can have a very rich bench. You can have Matt Chapman playing, 2 out of every 3 games and sitting on the bench for that third game, making $25 million, because your other shortstop or your other third baseman's only making $7 or $8 million. Like, so you can do it that way.
And the thing with it too, like you mentioned Pujols, that's a good example, but he was also like clubhouse leader, team leader. And we just don't have that still. I just don't see it with Willie. I don't see it with Devers. It's hard to have a team leader in Devers when he just won't talk to the media, but twice a year, 3 times a year, and that's it. Just refuses to speak with the media. So it's hard for me to see that as a fan. Again, I don't know what's going on in the clubhouse or in the dugout, but as a fan, I look at that and I go, well, who's leading this ship? It's not Vitello, because he's the first year manager out of college. And he even said at the beginning of the year, he told the guys, like, treat me as your peer. We're in this together. It's like, no, this this team needs a rudder on the ship because we see how this rudderless ship has been going now. So it's a little bit difficult to watch at times. So like a guy like Pujols, I get it because you keep him around. It's like having another coach. That's fantastic. Chapman, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. I can absolutely see that with Chapman, but with Adames and Devers not playing and sitting on the bench and just eating up those contracts, eating up all that money. Again, you're not going to get a whole lot of money back if you get rid of them, 10%, maybe 5%. But still, that's another roster spot you can open.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe send Devers to tell him to go home for like a month and just chill. I don't know what you would do. But look,
relax.
And we say that, and yet Devers he's not having a Devers season, but he's also not having the worst season. He hit the ball in the water yesterday. So
he's not having the season he had the first month of this season.
Yeah.
Speaking of going home, I don't know if you saw the breaking news, but Ketel Marte didn't show up for the game tonight for the Diamondbacks. So they slapped him on the restricted list. So
they're good though. What's going on?
Ketel Marte has been one of those guys, and I know the Giants have been rumored to possibly be trading for him, over the last like 2 seasons. But he's a guy that, a lot of people have questioned his work ethic. I guess there was a game that was really important last season or 2 seasons ago down the stretch where he had tired legs. So he took himself out and said, I'm going to sit down for a couple of games. And they're like, everybody's hurting. It's September. We need you right now. So, but he just didn't show up tonight. And
so from Robert Murray said that Marte arrived with the team in Boston, but did not show up to Fenway.
Oh, well, I hope he's okay. I mean,
and they said that they believe he's doing okay physically. He just didn't show up to the ballpark. That's from Nick Piacoro.
Interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see that very often. I mean, we heard about that. I remember, way back with Darryl Kyle. Darryl Kyle didn't show up at the ballpark, and then they found him with he had a heart attack in his hotel room. That's why you hear, you hear this and you hope he's okay. But, if they say he's good physically, that's great. But, hopefully everything's all right with him.
Is he having a good season? I don't even know this.
I haven't looked at his stats in a long time. I used to have him on like my fantasy team for years and years and years because he was such a fantasy asset with everything that he did. But yeah, I'm not sure what his
249, 21 jacks, 67 RBI.
I mean, that's pretty good. His average has always been around 250, 270, somewhere in there.
Devers, 246, 25 jack, 69 RBI. So Devers actually having a better offensive season.
Yeah. So, I mean, we would take a guy like Marte, but, so
not if he's not going to show up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If he's not going to show up and he's going to take himself out of important games in September.
They're playing friggin' Boston in Boston. Know, who would not want to play in that game? What's going on?
Exactly, man. Yeah.
All right, let's end it with this, which is we talked a little bit about we've talked about Whisenhunt for forever. You said make him a reliever. And I was like, yeah, I get it. He's valuable as a starter. I don't know if he could close. He doesn't throw hard enough. He's got the one pitch unless he just turns into Trevor Hoffman. I don't know. I guess he's left-handed, so he is somewhat valuable because you always need lefties. But he's just so inconsistent.
Can you get him to throw a sweeper? I mean, he's a big lefty. If he can work on some sort of sweeper, that's always a plus to have a sweeper with any kind of fastball, really. Just those, I mean, we saw Bumgarner do it for years. Nasty sweeper slider. And then, a fastball that wasn't, lights out fastball, but you mix those two together. And if you're a left-hander in the box, you don't know what the hell's coming. So.
Blade Tidwell, he's been sort of inconsistent too, but he's still young. I feel like he'd be a better guy to just throw out of his ass for an inning, but they seem to believe that he's got the quality to be a starter. It's also up in the air. It's also very inconsistent. He had that one good the one start in Texas. And I think he had another quality start to follow up, and then yesterday, not great. So I'm not sure with these guys, but I like the fact that they're getting the opportunity because you have to know what you got, right?
Yeah.
If you keep them in AAA, unless you really did just want to trade them, you kind of keep them in AAA to shield them from the big leagues. But they're here, so you might as well use them. You might as well get them the big league innings that they need to, to get those for you to get some sort of value out of the experiment, I guess. But then we got the Tugger coming up, Tugboat, Matt Wilkinson. And I don't know how he does it because this dude barely hits 90 on the gun with his fastball. I think they call it like the invisible fastball or something.
Yeah. When I saw the numbers today, I was like, is that real? I mean, it averages 89.5 or 89.6 on his fastball. Average. That means he throws it slower than that sometimes.
Yeah. So what is your take on whether or not these guys actually are going to be a bigger part of the rotation next year?
So I sent that to you guys earlier, and I thought, okay, I can see Tugboat maybe sticking in the rotation. But the more I think about it, he could be a reliever down the line.
Mhm.
Tidwell, I think if Tidwell just gets his command together. Watching him pitch yesterday, he commands the mound.
Mhm.
He's fiery. He gets that he's got a lot of emotion, which could get him down. I mean, there were, he got pissed off at a walk. He walked somebody. He got pissed off at himself. 2 pitches later, he gives up a jack to the number 9 hitter. And you're like, oh, come on. So, I mean, reel in the control, reel in the emotion. And I think he could stick in the starting rotation just because of his stuff. Whisenhunt, again, like I said, lefty. I'd love to see him working some sort of slider sweeper that's just nasty. In 2027, I hate to say it, but I think all 3 of those guys might have to be in the rotation. I mean, it really depends on what you're going to do in the offseason because you've got Roop, you've got Webb, and then after that, it's just kind of sketchy. So that's where it's going to be difficult. I don't want to see another Malley Hauser combination in the offseason. I'd like to see, and this is another thing that was talked about today in the podcast that I was watching. And we don't just pull things from the podcast, but it gives us ideas because we're Giants fans. And so when you see people who aren't necessarily big Giants fans talk about it, although, Saris lives in the San Francisco area, that's kind of his home team. So he does know a lot about the Giants, but when you hear things like this, where they say, they want to see the Giants do more in terms of like with Suarez, I think with Boston, right? Where they gave him short contract, 3 years, high AAV, just to get him to come in and just to say, look, we're not giving anybody 7 or 8 year deals like Dylan Cease, but let's do a 3-year deal. If we get hurt by it, we get hurt by it, but then we're out of it in 3 years. Or we can move him, and say, we'll eat 50, 60% of that. We'll move them. No big loss. And then we'll move on from that. I like that idea. We did see it with Blake Snell, kind of worked out. But again, if these
still paying that dude.
Exactly. And I want to see it without the that's going to haunt us for a while. At least it's not Bobby Bonilla pay.
Yeah.
Still every July 1st.
But Bobby Bonilla, I'd actually rather be paying Bobby Bo than paying Blake Snell right now.
I think I would too, because then at least I would feel like it's still the 90s, right? But yeah, I mean, because I like to see those big AAV deals, but I don't want to see the opt-outs, because then you get a situation like Blake Snell where it's like, I pitched great. Well, that's great, but you're only going to have him for 1 year.
Yeah.
And he's a stopgap guy. No, give him the 3 years, 20 mil a year, 25 mil a year for 3 years, if you're betting on him and you think he can do it, let's go. Let's get a mainstay in the rotation instead of a Hauser and a Malley deal. But
The thing about those deals, though, the guys who are willing to do that and still have tremendous value across the league, they're probably more than likely going to do it for teams that they believe are competing for championships. So that is the other part. It's so hard to get these guys, because if your reputation is that you're not competing for titles, then maybe they're going to take a little bit less money to go do that somewhere else. So that's kind of where they're at.
True, but we've also seen guys that will take a bag. And they will take a bag, especially if they're in the younger end and they just want to do a 2-year deal to gather some more numbers. And if you want to gather numbers, you come to Oracle, you'll get your numbers, and then you can take that somewhere else and get more money down the line. So, it's all a game. It's all free agency is always a game. One thing they did talk about too in the article is that it just kind of seemed like maybe the Giants weren't going after free agents the way that other teams were. Some free agents and agents of those free agents said basically like, yeah, we didn't get the idea that the Giants were coming after us pretty hard or that they were interested at all. So, but again, I think, I hate to say it because I don't like it, people lose their jobs and this is their livelihood, but I think, you take Manassian out and you plug somebody else in, maybe from an organization like Tampa Bay or Boston, who's, really kind of growing. You take somebody out of there who wants a, assistant to the GM, this and that, maybe analytics GM, and then you plug them into our position and let them do their thing. I think that's pretty important for the organization going forward.
You mentioned these guys and getting their numbers in Oracle. Adrian Hauser.
Well, yeah. I mean,
103 innings pitched. He's given up 15 jacks. Tyler Malley, 94 2/3 innings pitched. He gave up 14 jacks. Now, Adrian Hauser's K per 9, 6.1. At least Hauser, or at least Malley was 8.5, almost 9. Interestingly, Logan Webb's strikeouts are down this year compared to last year for sure.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with the first, the first month and a half, he was just struggling. And, you can point to the WBC. We don't know. It's hard to say. Next year we won't have the WBC. So, see how Webb starts out. But man, is he dealing now?
Landon Roop, this is an interesting stat. He's thrown the most pitches per start of any Giant starter. You would think that was just automatically Logan Webb. Absolutely. But I guess Logan Webb's a little bit more efficient with his outs. So Landon Roop 95.1 pitches per start, Logan Webb 93.9. But because of Logan Webb being more efficient in less starts, he's got 10 more innings pitched. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to see the Tugger. Hopefully, we'll get to see Marcelo Meyer, who JJ thinks is a handsome guy. Says he reminds him of Vinny Chase from Entourage.
There you go.
And maybe, you get to see a little bit of Meyer and Eldridge together on the diamond playing some defense. So that'll be kind of fun, maybe a little bit of the future of the team there. And I don't know what else there is to look forward to. They lost 2 out of 3 to Colorado. They lost a home series against the Colorado friggin' Rockies.
Maybe this will be Meyer's Medellin, right?
Yeah. But Medellin was that was a bad movie or a good movie? Was that a good movie?
I saw that. I saw the show a long time ago. Let's pretend like it was good, but I think it was bad.
I think he
just really wanted
Aquaman
to do it
too. I think he did Aquaman.
Yeah, that's right. He did. I forgot about that. Good stuff. I got to go back and watch that.
All right, we'll be back next week, and we'll hopefully have some good news. And like I said, we're going to hang on to our top 5 Giant seasons of all time, and we'll throw it in there when we have some more time. So, okay, that is it from here for Brad. I'm Double GC. When we see you, peace out.
Peace.